And welcome to the Right Path Podcast, everybody. This is the place where being an author, an actual author, really, really and truly still matters. Folks, this is the podcast that's about authors. It's done by an author, it's for authors. It's where we come together, we share our journeys, it's where we explore our creativity, and it's where we examine the why behind it all. Our guest today is coming on here. He's got a fantastic podcast called Lighthearted Arts Podcast. He has written an incredible book that I'm about halfway through, and I'm enthralled by it. I got to be honest with you. It's unique and it's very descriptive. It's called One for the Money, Two for the Soul, and I can't wait to hear more about that. And on top of everything else, he's got his own studio, film studio under development. So we're going to hear more about that today too, folks. Please welcome to the show, Brent Lindstrom. Brent, how you doing today, brother?
Doing great, doing great. So yeah, I'm Brent Lindstrom. I'm the owner, founder, whatever you want to call it, of Like-Minded Arts. And yeah, I'm into books and movies and all that kind of creative fun stuff.
And on top of everything else, you're a podcaster now too.
I am, yeah. So I've been trying to help other creatives on their journey too. So I wasn't always able to focus all my energies on the creative side of things like I wanted to. And so I spent a lot of time working out how I was going to not be a struggling artist, but become a working creative. And, it took me 10 years or so to get that all worked out. And so, yeah, I like to give back and help other people along their journey so that, I mean, because when you think about it, art is a really hard way to make a living, and it's really nice if you can find ways to support yourself and your family while doing your art.
Yeah, for sure. And you've got quite a story about that, really. I know that your saying is from Hammer to Hollywood. I heard that on your podcast, and I know I read it, in your bio and stuff. You were not always, just some happy-go-lucky author and podcaster, right? I mean, you fought your way to this spot.
Yeah, I did. And, I've always wanted to do something creative. In the beginning, I was told that that was probably not the life for me, and I accepted that. I ended up basically doing construction for the first half of my life. I mean, I was framing houses when I was 13 years old, and I did end up going to
And hey, folks, this is what happens when you're recording, right? And you guys all know that I don't edit on any of my 7 podcasts that I have going, but this is why. So we're going to go back to Brent. We got him back now, and that's wonderful. Brent, I appreciate you sticking with us while we went through whatever just happened. And you had just started telling your story, brother. So if you don't mind, just take us from the top.
Yeah, yeah, no problem, no problem. And so, like I started before, I was not always an author. I wanted to be an author. Well, I actually wanted to be a filmmaker in the very, very beginning when I was really little, and that didn't quite work out. I didn't know anyone in the field, and pretty much everyone told me dream a little further off from there. And so I decided to follow the family business, not necessarily out of choice. My family was in construction, so that's where I started. When I was 13 years old, I got hired onto a framing crew and started building houses that way. And beyond that, I kept up with the construction field while I was going to college for a finance degree and later an MBA. And at the time, I was living in about as ghetto of an area as you can find in Utah. And I wasn't making a lot of money. I was married, had one kid, wanted more. And I thought, how am I going to get out of this place that I'm in right now? And I thought, I'm going to write some books on the side because I was already working a lot of hours at work. I didn't want to spend any more time out of the house away from the family. So I started writing books while I was at home. And I realized that's not a good way to make a side income, especially when you're just starting out and you haven't learned the craft yet.
Right.
So, fast forward a couple years, I was in my 10-year plan because I realized, even though I couldn't make a living as an artist, I was addicted to writing. I was addicted to storytelling. And I thought I can self-publish eventually here once I get my craft up to speed, but I also can probably make my stories into movies. And so I put together a whole 10-year plan of how I was going to improve my craft and get myself financially independent so that at some point I could leave the construction field and enter the creative field. And that's actually what I ended up doing. I put together that plan and I stuck to it. And me and the family, we scrimped. Luckily, my wife was incredibly supportive of my vision. And today I've been a year full time as a writer, and it's been a great journey.
Man, I mean, there's so much to unpack right there. First of all, that's amazing that your wife supports the journey like that.
It's
And
scary for her, I'll tell you that, but she still supports it.
well, and I saw you dedicated your book to your wife and your family,
Yeah.
in that way because of them believing in you, and being willing to take the risk. So, people do think that, hey, I'll write, I'll sell books, I'll make all kinds of money, when they get into this. You found out pretty quickly that's not how this works. Uh,
Nah, especially when you're starting out and your first
right?
few books aren't going to be all that great. I mean, maybe
Exactly.
you're gifted. I wasn't gifted. I had to work hard at the craft.
Sure. I'm going to come back to the writing, but you've talked about your 10-year plan that you put
Mhm.
together. And I read a little bit about that when I was looking, some things up on you. Um, Now, did you go through some sort of training to develop this 10-year plan? I mean, did you have a mentorship? People can't just sit down and make a 10-year plan. You know what I mean? So it sounds easy, but you went through something to get there.
Yeah, so for me, at the time, I didn't really have any mentors in kind of doing what I wanted to do. I had some mentors in the real estate development area, mostly because I was in construction and that was eventually going to translate into real estate development. And so, yeah, I was going to learn how to do a lot of that, but a lot of it was self-motivated. I had a goal, I knew where I wanted to be. And frankly, even when I was in my early 20s, I thought, you know what, by the time I'm 30, I need to be a millionaire. And it didn't quite that was a little bit slower process, but
That's a plan,
it
man.
it was a plan. And the thing is, I was always focused on how am I going to learn enough about money and about entrepreneurship and different things to get myself to the levels I want to be at. And so I was always super focused on reading every book I could find on investing, on trading, on self-improvement. I mean, I've read so many books on self-improvement and just finance. I mean, like I said, I went and got my degree in finance and later got my MBA, but that was all to support my whole plan of figuring out how to get myself in a position where I could be, where basically money didn't matter anymore. And the funny thing about money is money's so ethereal. If you don't have it, it's the most important thing in the world. Once you do have it, it's almost intangible. It's almost like not really there because once you get to that stage, it takes on a whole new meaning.
Yeah, I've heard that before. It's like, hey, money solves everything if you don't have it. But then when you do have it, it's like, well, it's not that great.
Yeah.
It's not the whole deal. So you
And the
self-taught
fun,
your way.
yeah, and the fun part about it too is because I was going through all the financial prep and the personal growth things, the personal growth kind of came hand in hand with all of it because you can't just focus on your writing craft or your financial health without focusing on the whole picture on you as an individual. If you don't focus on you as an individual, then what are you? You're a greedy, self-absorbed person who only cares about money and your books. And who's gonna ever pay you a dime for your thoughts? It's not going to happen. You need to become a good person in the process and constantly working on, all three of those, every aspect of your life to get where you need to go is incredibly important. And
Sure.
yeah, so that 10-year plan, it I had to map it out at some point. Maybe the first year of it, I was thinking, this is where I want to be in 10 years. And, I'm a big Excel spreadsheet kind of guy. And so I labeled everything that I needed to do. I read the books on how to improve yourself. I read, I mapped out everything I needed to do step by step to get to my end goal. And yeah, that's pretty much how I made it.
That's interesting, though. That discipline that you put in there is what ended up giving you the freedom to go full time
Yep.
and do this for a year now. I mean, that's impressive. So for a
Yeah,
year,
and,
you've
and
been a full
and
time
I'm
writer.
and I'm still set up to where I could keep on going, even if my art never made me a dime, I could still be able to continue doing the things that I'm passionate about.
That is fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank
Really and
you.
truly. I love hearing it when people, get to that. A friend of mine has a podcast where he talks about a freedom day.
Oh
They
yeah, Jeff Keichel, right?
right. You were on his show,
Yeah,
I
yeah, I've
think.
met him. I've actually got him coming on my show eventually here.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, he talks about that, and I know I hit mine. That's amazing for you. So congratulations, because so many people never get there.
Yeah,
But that's
thanks.
really great, man. It really is. Now you've written a bunch of books at this point.
Yes.
What was the book that kind of got you started, got that, put it out
So,
there?
yeah, the first one was called The Nephilim Device, and it was a three-part series. It was part of my trunk novel series. I actually wrote them under a different name than my own because I knew that my craft wouldn't be up to par on them, and I didn't want people to associate my trunk novels with what would eventually become my mainstream novels.
Hmm.
And so they were basically my practice. They were taking my best approach at writing and actually practicing it. And so, yeah, I did the Nephilim device, later the Nephilim effect, and then followed it up with the Nephilim conspiracy. And those are kind of a more of an adventure thriller type
Okay,
series novel. Yeah.
sure. All right. Now, have you always written fiction, like from the get-go? It seems like that's been your
Yeah,
your niche.
I fiction is my niche. I love fiction, and more importantly, I love clean fiction. So I love the idea that an adult can pick up a book and not have to compromise their personal values if their values don't line up with the thing. So my personal values, just so that you are aware, I do not like to read or watch rated R movies, and I don't like to read content that would be considered rated R. And a lot of that has to do with my upbringing. I've got some very strong Christian values, and but personally, they don't make me feel as good inside when I'm done reading them. And I don't always like to go down to young adult fiction because if you only read young adult fiction, I mean, it's geared towards teens, and I want something that's made for me as an adult that aligns with my values. So that's why I focus on clean fiction. And therein lies another thing. A lot of people they think that, oh, you're writing value-driven novels. Are you trying to be preachy to me? You trying to push your values on me? And that's not the case. I love being entertained. I love just having a good time, sitting back, relaxing to something, and I don't want to be told what to think or what to believe or anything like that. I just want to be entertained. I think Samuel L. Jackson, I'll totally misquote this, but he said that he was incredibly blessed for having popular taste. And so he ends up getting in all these movies that everybody just seems to love. They're not so esoteric that you got to really think hard on them. Maybe they're not commercial. These big Emmy or whatever award-winning Oscar things that maybe the critics love but the people hate. He loves popular entertainment, and I feel like I'm the same way. I'm not going to push my values on anyone, but I'm going to write with my values in mind and just try to give as good of a story, as fun of a story, given those restrictions.
I applaud that. I really do. I don't. I think too many people are afraid of the way that gets received, and so they stray away from that. So honestly, congratulations on having that be part of your platform. I think that's huge. And even if you're not being preachy and you're not pushing it on people, you're leading by example, which is really important in today's world. So,
And
yeah.
there's a market for every kind of book. There's a market
Hmm.
for people who love exotica, but there's also a market for people who like clean fiction, and I'm
Hmm.
just writing to that market.
Right on. I love it. I really do. Okay. The clean fiction is something that's been picking up a little bit of steam here lately. Um, the having clean fiction though does not mean that it's bland or boring. And I found that out when I was reading your 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 most recent book, One for the Money, Two for the Soul. Let's talk about that briefly in terms of, this is your most recent one. I don't want to give away the secret sauce to anybody because if they want to read this, they can go to a link actually and get it from you, can't they?
Yeah, I'm gonna. Anyone who listens to this podcast, you go to my website, fill out my contact form, say where you heard this, mention your podcast, and yeah, I will send you a free copy of this novel.
Nice. Nice. I love that. And that's very generous of you. But again, they can go ahead and read it on their own, right? If that's why I don't want to give it away. But this was from the get-go. You're a very descriptive writer, which I want to give you credit for because you really
Thank you.
set the stage in the first few pages. I knew exactly what I was looking at. And it was picture was just clear. I could feel like I was sitting right next to this little girl, run towards this pond. And I'm going, okay, gotcha. And then, like without even a blink of an eye, this overcoming sense of dread hits me with the next part, and I'm going, "You have to be kidding me!" And I felt it. That doesn't always happen when you're reading a book, but I felt the shift and went, "Whoa!" and refocused on the writing. Is that something that you've picked up over the years? Is it something that you're aware of, of doing, or is this just a natural thing that happens to you where you like draw us in, it's like nice and peaceful, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what am I looking at?
No, I think that every story has its own way of telling itself, and part of it is studying the craft of story, knowing the beats that you want to hit and everything, but part of it too is letting the story itself come out the way that the story wants to come out. And I know that's very that's very vague idea of how to make that sound, but like I've got another book that's coming out in March. It's more of a fantasy noir type of a book, and that one starts out hardcore from the beginning. But yeah, it just kind of depends. So on this one, it's supposed to be more of a zany thrill ride. You're following the adventure of this girl as she grows up with the the mayhem that happens to her and that she ends up causing because of that. And I think it was just trying to establish her innocence in the very beginning and let you know that there's going to be something bad that happens, but her innocence is going to be an overriding theme throughout the book.
Hmm, gotcha, gotcha. Now, whenever we're writing books, I find that there's usually someone that we're writing it to or someone that we're writing it for, something of that nature. Is that the case with you? Were you writing this to somebody or for somebody?
The only person I was writing this one for was myself, honestly.
Awesome.
And I get that you probably should have an audience you're writing to, but sometimes it's fun just to write the story that excites you in the moment. And that was this story.
Nice. I appreciate the honesty, honestly. So that's that's great. I got you. All right. The now you're self-publishing all of your books?
Yes.
Okay. Have you gone down the other paths or have you just been I'm self-publishing from the get-go? What's been your journey in that direction?
Yeah, so my early trunk novels, I did the whole querying, 100 different agents on it and getting all the form rejections from that. And it was so funny because I sent all these out and yeah, the books needed some help. They needed some work. And if you read those early novels, you'll see that. But when you go the traditional route like that, you're you're having to send out all of this information. You're trying to get agents, you're trying to get publishers, you're trying to get anyone to look at it, and you're getting all these rejections. But the thing is I would get rejection letters over a year later that I'd forgotten. I thought I'd got them all back, and then I'd still get the rejection letters in. And I was like, you know what? This is a very long process. And for me, life felt too short to be stuck trying to please somebody else. And where self publishing is so incredibly easy nowadays, it was like, well, yes, they're a gatekeeper, but can I be my own gatekeeper? Can I learn the craft and can I do this well enough that I know that they're good and I don't have to have them verify it? And because you're still going to have to do a lot of your own marketing even if you go that route. And basically all the cards basically pointed towards self-publishing and I thought, you know what? It doesn't take a whole lot to self-publish a book. It does take a little bit to edit your books, but even if you go the traditional route, you need to get professional editors on it first because the traditional route, they're still going to want to see a polished copy or they're not even going to read past page one. And so you're still going through all the same steps. And if you can figure out how to write a good book and you know it's a good book and you know that you can sell it eventually, then really the only step after that is learning how to become a marketer.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I decided to go the self-publishing route and then it kind of translated into my whole independent filmmaking thing where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be a whole company within myself, Like-Minded Arts, Blue House Publishing. We are just going to go for this, and we're going to just enjoy that journey.
I love that. I really do. So the filmmaking that you're working on,
Yep.
the film studio that you're got in production that you're putting together, are you taking your works and putting them into, film, or are you making independent films off things that haven't been put in the books yet?
Little of both. So right now the studio is under development. I'm whenever if you've never done any property development before, the thing is, once you buy a piece of property, you have to entitle it, and then you have to get it engineered, and then you get all of that underground sewer, water, everything built, and then you have to start turning in permits for the actual construction of the buildings. And so I have been in about a 2 year struggle of getting through that whole engineering phase of things. And I actually do this for a living, and so I was expecting this, but yeah, I'm in process of building that studio. And once I get that studio built, then I plan on pushing all my stuff towards that. And right now, I'm just writing the screenplays that will go into that. And over the next couple of year or two here, I'm gonna try to get as many screenplays put together as I can, so that once I get the studio up and running, I have some stories to put in there. And my books. So that second part of your question, it's an interesting thing because oftentimes novels don't always translate into good movies. Maybe
Right.
bad novels do, but some of the better novels don't always translate. I mean, there's exceptions. You've got the Harry Potter series, and there's a lot, maybe what is it? The Martian, some of those kind of books, they do translate, but they take a lot of work to get there. Often, what I've found is if you're trying to take an existing story and turn it into a movie, short stories tend to do a little bit better because in a movie, you're trying to condense everything down into about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at the max. And a novel is generally a bit broader than that. And so you have to really make it super condensed, super concise, which makes for a really good, fast paced movie if you can do it successfully. But if you take a short film, I mean, sorry, a short story, those ones are a little more appropriate. The scope of the story is a little more appropriate to fit into an hour and a half program.
Makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
So
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 something
so
might
yeah,
get
so
adapted,
yeah,
but
so my books, I'm not having my books necessarily adapted yet, but I am working on short stories that I'm putting into screenplays. So
right. Yeah, you're doing separate stuff for that, and yeah, that makes sense. Okay, good deal. The Now I know that your hammer to Hollywood is your thing. What's the draw to Hollywood? Where does that come into your story? I'm following the book, I'm following the building, the book, the whole bit. You know what I mean? But like Hollywood's kind of, is there a connection there in your past, or what made you go that
no,
way?
there's no connection in my past. So and that's one of the reasons why I always thought that I would never make it in the movie industry because I didn't have any connections
Hmm.
to Hollywood. But when I got addicted to storytelling, at first it was just the writing. And so I was doing the writing thing. But within about a year or two after I'd finished that first novel, I started to get excited about filmmaking. And I started seeing that there were more of these independent films out there. And I thought, that is so exciting. I can I can create a story on the page and I can create a story on the screen. And I wanted that. I don't know why I wanted that, but something about it excited me. And so while I was learning the craft of storytelling on page, I also started incorporating the film school mentality into my life, into my 10-year plan. And so that 10-year plan was pretty extensive. I mean, it spreadsheet, multiple columns, got to check everything off, and then you got all these different aspects you're learning, and then eventually I had to start working on practicing those. I basically gave myself my own curriculum for film school and for writing school and for finance and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Your faith is obviously incredibly important to you. The your journey that you're on, is this sort of hey, I want to try new things and I want to have some fun and live my best life, or do you feel like you're being called to do some of these things with the purpose?
Um, a little bit of both. So I think that part of me wants to just have a lot of fun and do the things that I'm passionate about. But a lot of the things that I am passionate about have to do with my faith. And yes, I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that influences pretty much every day of my life. And I feel incredibly blessed to have been able to not only achieve the financial independence that I have now, but to have been able to start this journey in the first place. And when you, if I was to attribute all the success to myself, I think that I'd get a little too big-headed because I'm very prone to pride. I mean, it's everybody is, in my opinion, but
Sure.
if you can attribute any amount of your success to a higher power, for me, God, then it feels like he has blessed you with this. And if he's blessed you with this, then maybe you should be able to give back. And giving back can happen in multiple ways. It can happen through charity. I love to donate to charity. I love to serve. I love helping other people. Part of my podcast and my YouTube channel is helping other creatives because I've been given a lot. I want to share that experience, that knowledge, anything that can help them. I want to help give some of that to them too. But also, maybe from the perspective of the clean fiction area, yes, I want to have fun with these. I don't want to tell anyone how to live their lives, but I do want to show that if you have those strong Christian values like I have, that you can still find quality entertainment. It feels like so often I'll look at the movie theaters and I'll say, okay, what can I go to the movie theaters and watch? Rated R. Nah, I don't want to see anything rated R. Rated R. And then maybe there's something that's rated PG or something, but it's some kid's cartoon and that doesn't interest me at all. And so a lot of times I don't find the kind of content that me as a value-driven person would want to watch. And so I feel like why don't I make that kind of content? You know, Disney was really good at making that for a long time. For a long time, Disney made movies. They were cartoon, granted, but they were made for adults, but kids got it. But Walt wasn't originally trying to make them for kids.
Uh,
And and I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of adults still click with a lot of the older Disney movies and things. But as you've probably noticed, Disney is buying up all these other IPs, and they aren't necessarily caring to stay in that kind of a niche anymore. And so
yeah.
I want to be able to have my values drive the kind of content that I would want to watch. And hopefully that would help others not compromise on their values if they want to watch something entertaining.
Well, I love that. Like I said, I think it's great. If we go back to your book journey for just a
Sure.
second here, when you get into When you get into reading books and writing books and things like that, I think especially when we all want to become authors, we have an idea of what it's going to look like. There's this vision in our heads, whether we're accepting an award or cashing a big check, there's something that's in our minds, right? Um, what was the biggest surprise for you, good or bad, from what you thought becoming an author was going to be to what you now know being an author is on a full-time basis?
Well, remember when I said that I wanted to start writing to get some side income to help augment my
Yeah.
my puny construction wages there? Um, it ended up costing me money instead of bringing in any money. And I think that's something that a lot of new authors need to realize is that even if you do a spectacular job on your first novels, you are still likely to spend more money publishing them, even if you go traditional versus traditional or self-published. You're going to spend more money on them in the beginning than they're ever going to make for you. You're going to have to start getting more novels out there. You're going to have to develop an audience eventually before that equation can reverse. I think I put the math together one time, and if you figure on all the hard costs, which is editing uh, and formatting and book covers and all those different things, but then you also add in the soft costs, which are your time. For me, those first several books would have cost me about $33,000 per book.
Wow.
And because, I mean, if you're not paying yourself, you're basically working for free. And obviously, as a self-published writer or any writer, you're not actually going to pay yourself, but that is the opportunity cost that you lose. You could go out and get a part-time job and make that money working for somebody else. So there's always an opportunity cost and there's always a hard cost. And when I calculated it out for me in the beginning, it was $33,000 per book.
My goodness. All right. That would be a surprise if you didn't know that going into it. I can see where that would be a little
And
shocking.
that's my Excel brain working at you too here because I itemized everything and I track everything. So yeah, it's I'm a real numbers guy. I study money a lot.
Sounds like it. Well, that's where you get the 10-year plan from, is being able to do that in the first place. So,
Yeah.
congratulations. As you sit down to write, now you're a full-time author now. And
Yes.
so I don't know how much it's changed since you became full-time, but what's your process of writing? Are you hey, I'm going to schedule a time and sit down and write type of guy, or are you, I'm going to, whenever it hits me, I'm going to take some notes and then, put it all together? What's your
Yeah.
process and how has it changed from when you were part-time to now that you're full-time?
Okay. So let me start out with the idea creation. So I always try to have either my phone or a notebook somewhere handy where when ideas come up, I can write them down.
Right.
Because as authors, as you probably know, ideas are so plentiful, but sometimes if you don't write them down, you forget them. So I always have a long list of ideas that I can pick and choose from when I'm ready to start a new project. But the actual day to day, I do have to schedule myself out and I have to be pretty diligent about that because there's so many things that can draw my attention. My real estate investments and business investments, those still take some time to manage. There's really no completely and just to preface this, I support myself a lot through my investments. I do stock trading, options trading, I do investing, I do angel investing, real estate, development, all these things. There is no passive income that does not come completely passive. Those all take some time. So I have to figure out how to manage that into my schedule too. So what I usually do is I pick certain days and I'll say on this day and this day, all I am going to focus on is my investments or my bigger business plans. And then I take the rest of the days and I say these are the days I have for my creative business. And I treat my writing like a business. So on my writing days, I will get up at about 5:30 in the morning. I will get a workout in, get my breakfast, get all ready for the day and everything. Then I will go sit down and I will sit at the computer for about half an hour and manage my stock trading portfolio. After that half hour, I will sit down and I will start writing, and I will write from about 8 o'clock until 8 o'clock until noon. And that is my dedicated writing time. And during that time, I usually have about three different projects, 3 to 4 different projects that I have. I devote about an hour to each story every morning. So I might have one that's brand new rough draft that I'm doing. Then after that hour, my mind's getting all frazzled. I'm ready to move on, so I'll pick the next book, and maybe that one is an edit. So I'll be working on an edit for an hour, and then once that one's done, I'll move on to my other, which might be a screenplay, or it might be a blog post or something like that. So I section my morning off in 1 hour increments and devote that time to just writing or editing some kind of story or content. And then in the afternoon, that is my time for more of the visual or marketing side of things. So my YouTube channels, my YouTube channel at Light Minded Arts there, that one I film all my skits in the afternoon. I will uh, I'll put together my storyboards, do whatever I need to then. Or if I'm working on a feature film or a short film, I will storyboard those. I'll work on those then. I've already done the writing, sometime in the past during one of those mornings. So that's when I work on the visual aspect of that. Or that's also when I'll record myself doing something like this. I will do some marketing outreach. I'll let people know, hey, this is what I'm doing, or I'll share things on my YouTube channel, or uh, it's my time to be creative visually or to reach out on the broader web and move my agenda forward that way.
Nice.
And yeah, and then at night around 5:30 or so, it's family time. And I try very hard not to focus at all on work after that.
That's really important. That's got to be a priority. That's fantastic.
If you can't keep your family, you lose everything.
Right. Why are you doing any of
Yep.
it?
I wouldn't
100%.
be here without them.
Right. Absolutely. No, I love what you're doing. And I love the heart that you have while you're in it. The Going back to the book, there's a couple of themes that I've picked up in the book. You talk a little bit about the technology, for instance, that can like tag and transplant the sort of the spirit, the soul,
Yeah.
of the person. Again, I don't want to give away too much, but I want to ask you the question. So I'm tripping a little bit right now. Um, there's At first, I thought that I was picking up that the technology has kind of become evil in the way that it's been used. But
Uh-huh.
then I thought maybe there was a lean more towards, hey, it's not the technology that's evil, it's the people using the technology that is evil. And I was wondering if you wanted to speak on that, what maybe you meant with that, because the technology part of it is kind of a big part of the most recent book.
Yeah, so I think technology is interesting because we're going through something like that right now. You've got AI, which is pretty well scaring a lot of people, creatives especially, and just a lot of people in general. And a, a lot of people are very polarized on it. And technology is funny because there's always going to be resistance to technology, and there's always going to be adopters of it, and it'll get villainized, it'll get sainted, technology just a kind of funny thing. But technology, just like money, just like guns, just like about anything that you can think of out there, is a tool. And it's always completely dependent on how we use it. And it's going to have its value in some circumstances, and it's going to be a weapon in other circumstances. It's going to hurt people in other circumstances. So I I would say that I, I think that the in the book where this technology is maybe slated as evil in the beginning, but you can get the drift that it could go either way. I think that just underlies the natural effect of technology in our lives and maybe asks the question, how would you use this technology if you had it? And I'm not going to answer that question. I'll let you figure that out.
For sure. All right, good deal. I appreciate the answer. Um, the Let me ask you about your characters in the book because right off the bat, your lead character is incredible. Yeah, the way that you write her, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
Um, the How do you go about creating your characters, and are you in any of them?
I would say that my very first book, I was in that one. My in all my recent books, I am not in any of them.
Hmm.
And this book in particular, I had a I don't think there was anybody in particular that I was modeling any of the characters, especially their attributes after. It I basically like for instance, Winnie. Winnie is a sweet, innocent girl who has something terrible happen to her, and she has to make the best of the situation. It's and the idea for her was if this happened to a person like her, and given the constraints that she ended up living with, and I'll divulge this much at least, her spirit gets stolen from her, but only half of it. The other half of it gets transplanted into the body of an assassin's apprentice. And when that soul got split, this isn't a normal thing, this was an accident. Half of her personality went into the one body, and she retained the other half. And the idea was that I wanted to find out what a girl like her would do if this was all she had to work with. And it allowed me to just go down a rabbit hole into her character. And I think character driven stories are so fun in this respect that you can just do a deep dive into what she thinks, what she would do, and it drives the whole story. And that's so much fun in this book. And not just on her end, but you also get to see the other half of her side, his journey. And so, yeah, it just exploring that character given the constraints of the story are so much fun.
Yeah. You said you were in the first book, but you're not in the subsequent books. Now, is that by design?
Well, that first series, I guess I should say, and it wasn't by design. I think that when a lot of us write our first book, or at least maybe not, maybe I'm just projecting myself on others, but for me, I I didn't know how to write character at the time, so I wrote myself as that character. Yeah, it's not my name, it's not anything specific, but it's how I would have acted. It's probably how I would have thought or would have wanted to think at the time. And so, in a way, that was me as that main character. And I think the thing I've learned as I've advanced in my storytelling abilities is that I don't need to write that person anymore. That I can write pretty well any character and just do a deep dive into who they are and figure out how they would relate to the story in these circumstances. And that's really how it is. It was out of necessity the first time, and then it became obsolete through all the rest of my books.
That's fair. Okay. I love it. And that's funny because I get a lot of different answers on that question. And there are people who flat out they are in every book. I interviewed one guy where he's even on the cover,
Oh,
and
really?
it is a spitting image of him on the cover of his book.
In my YouTube videos, I am the star and the side, multiple sides sometimes in all my YouTube videos. I get enough screen time. I'll let
Okay.
someone else take the spotlight in my books.
There you go. Yeah, all right, that's awesome. All right, well, listen, I've Love everything you had to say about the book. Give everybody your contact information, of course, first. I still have one more question for you, but
Yeah, sure.
give them your contact info. How can they, reach you? Tell them about the free copy of the book, etc.
Yeah, yeah. So my website is www.lightmindedarts.com. On there, you can find that contact page where you can request that free copy. Just mention this podcast and it'll be on your way. And if you want to check out my YouTube site, you can. It's just Light Minded Arts. And yeah, that's pretty much it. My books are for sale in all the major bookstores. Most of them have audio. Well, this one right here, one for the money, two for the soul. This one has audio, though it's not on Audible yet. I'm trying to get it there. It's on Spotify and a bunch of the others. My upcoming book, though, Hard Boiled Cabbage, keep an eye out for that one. That's coming this March. That one is a fantasy noir, so that one's going to be a lot of fun. And that's pretty much it.
Hard-boiled cabbage.
Yep.
I mean that I cannot. I hope you will come back on the show and talk about that one because oh my goodness, that sounds like it's a pretty hardcore novel.
It's fun, it's hardcore. It's still clean, but it is still gritty, and
Hmm.
it's a lot of fun. That's actually going to be a series book, and so that's going to be a lot of
I was
fun.
gonna say I'm imagining like the Irish mob or something going on right now, but maybe that's just the cabbage part. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, I love it. Okay, so let me ask you, the last question then. You've gone through the gamut. You've succeeded in terms of becoming an author. You're a published author. You've got multiple books out there, and you figured out how to do it. There are a lot of folks who listen to this program who are not authors yet. And so we get a lot of DMs and comments and things like that about, well, how do we do this and how do we do that? So I like to ask my guests, what's your best piece of advice for aspiring authors out there who have not yet pulled the trigger to become authors themselves?
I think that my best piece of advice would be it's kind of two-pronged. So, best piece of advice is keep on writing. When I was going through my 10-year plan, I did not stop writing. I did not wait to learn the craft. I learned the craft while I kept on writing. My trunk novels, I kept publishing trunk novel after trunk novel until I learned. But there's the other thing is you need to learn the craft. And there's so many books out there that help you with craft, with story beats, with story arcs. And there's not just one story arc that works for everything. Every genre has its own beats. You need to learn your craft and practice it. And don't be afraid to publish, even if maybe it is your trunk novel. I mean, I did it under a different name, but now that I'm ready, I'm doing it all on my own name. But yeah, keep writing and keep learning.
Great advice. Great advice. All right, folks. Host of the Light-Minded Arts podcast and YouTube channel, and author of, amongst many other books, his most recent, One for the Money, Two for the Soul, Brent Lindstrom. Brent, thank you for coming on here, for sharing all of this information that you've shared, and so much about yourself and your own journey. I know it helps some people, and I really appreciate you coming on today, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was a great time. I enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot. Folks, this has been another awesome episode of the Right Path podcast. Um, this is the place where the truth still counts and words still have power. This is the place where authors know that every page is a step forward. So let's lift each other up. Let's dust ourselves off and let's all move forward together.